The first round of the NBA, the first round of the 2026 NBA draft is in the books, and the Chicago Bulls walk away with Caleb Wilson and Dailyn Swain. But what are the expectations for these guys in their rookie years? We're going to talk about that plus more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central, Chicago Bears Central, and Chicago Sky Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And it's just me today. Pat's going to take the morning off. We should be back to recap the draft and talk about free agency tomorrow. But today, I want to talk about the expectations for the players that the Chicago Bulls drafted in the 2026 draft. That's Caleb Wilson, and that's Dailyn Swain. Now, of course, the Dailyn Swain pick got met with a lot of kind of questions from the Bulls community because, a lot of Bulls fans had locked in on Cameron Carr being that guy there for the Bulls at number 15. And because he was on the board, a lot of Bulls fans are questioning, why did the Bulls pass on a player that had on-ball, off-ball defense, all that type of stuff? Well, we'll talk a little bit about that, right? And people getting their hopes wrapped up in expectations for certain players. But I like what the Bulls did. Before we get into the specific players, Pat recapped the draft last night. Shout out to Pat on that. But I think that what the Bulls got here is two players that are both two-way players. They both do have shooting concerns. We'll talk a little bit about that. But two-way players that help up the floor of the Chicago Bulls defensively. The Bulls offensively over the last few years have been solid. Not great, but solid. But defensively, the Bulls have been missing a lot. These two players instantly add switchability. They add that, which the Bulls have been lacking for a while, and they add still really good scoring upside, even despite not having the most flawless jump shot. So we're going to talk about the guys in regards to this one. Let's start off with Caleb Wilson. First off, Caleb Wilson, who fell to the Chicago Bulls at number 4, the most widely expected pick for the Bulls to be there at number 4, is somebody who wanted to be here. And that is something that does matter to me. So much has come out since Caleb Wilson was officially drafted by the Bulls. Kenny Beecham sent Caleb Wilson a DM on Twitter back in May with the Pippen meme and saying, "See you soon." And Caleb Wilson said, "I hope so." Shortly after being drafted by the Bulls, Caleb Wilson posted a picture of him as a kid in a Chicago Bulls hoodie. Caleb wanted to be here in Chicago. Now, one could say he wanted to be in Chicago because he knew that was the most likely thing, but he's been literally signaling this since the draft combine that he wanted the Chicago Bulls to be the team to take him. And with being a player that averaged 19.8 points per game in college, which he was 38th in collegiate basketball in scoring, even despite not having a really good outside jump shot, this is a guy that can create in the mid-range. He understands how to be the passer and to be the step-back guy in the short roll. I think people have mistaken his inconsistency from three-point shooting to mean that he can't shoot at all. In the mid-range, he brings everything you want. Creation, on-ball, off-ball, the ability to create a jump shot, the step back, the athleticism to be able to get to the rim, the ability to draw fouls as well. This is a kid that had 7.5 free throw attempts per game in his freshman year in college. That's because of the combination of speed, all that stuff. Now, he did hit his free throws at 71% clip. We would ideally want that to be 85% and higher. We'll work on that. But I think Caleb Wilson, the expectations for him in year one have to be set the tone defensively, right? Not to say that he's not going to have some offensive profile. He is. He's going to have some definitely responsibility on the offensive side of the ball. But Caleb Wilson instantly becomes the tone setter for the Chicago Bulls defensively. And day one, he can guard 1 through 4. 1 through 4, I think he can guard 4 positions. Long term, I think Caleb Wilson's going to be one of those players because of his length and wingspan that can guard all 5 positions. Now, I'm not saying that you want him to go in and guard a center in the post every single possession, but he's going to be able to do that thing that we saw similar with like Javonte Green and Alex Caruso, players that can guard centers and stay with them for a little while, and that's good. And then you have Nick Claxton here, who those guys, Nick Claxton, Caleb Wilson, and Modest Buzelis have instantly changed the Chicago Bulls team from being one of the worst rim protecting teams to, I think, having the ability to be one of the best rim protecting teams. So defensively is the first thing and the expectation that I have for Caleb Wilson in this first year. Defensively, set a tone. Get out in transition. Attack the bucket. Weak side defense. Switchability. Calls turnovers. Those type of things are all things that he can feast on while he's building his confidence offensively and stuff like that. We also have Josh Giddey. here, and Josh Giddey's going to really get him the ball. Now, Caleb Wilson and the Bulls overall, the half-court offense is going to be a bit of a struggle at times with the lack of shooting that we do have, but I think Caleb Wilson's job in that is to play in the pick and roll, right? Do those type of things. Keep pressure on teams from the three-point line, which he's going to be able to do. Teams cannot sag off on Caleb Wilson at the three-point line, even with him not being a crazy three-point shooter, mainly because of his ability to get that first step and finish at the rim and finish through contact, right? And so I think those things. Now, also, we've seen Tiago Splitter do this with the Portland Trail Blazers, is that the open shots are going to be there. And I do think Caleb Wilson is going to get a number of open shots at the corner three. His job is to still take those. Even if he's missing them, get those reps in, because that's going to be important for the development of him as a three-point shooter. He does those things. I think it's going to be he's going to develop nicely over time as that shooter that the Bulls need him to be. I think you have a perfectly good opportunity here for him, right? So Caleb Wilson, the Bulls are hoping, has that legit star player upside where he's going to turn into an absolute two-way dog for the Chicago Bulls. But first year, I'm looking at this. I'm not expecting Caleb Wilson to come in and average 16 to 18 points. I think 12 to 15 points per game for Caleb Wilson, because he is going to start. Tiago Splitter is not Billy Donovan. He's going to play this kid a lot. He's probably going to average between 25 and 28 minutes per game. You're going to look at that part of it. We still got Jalen here, still got Noah Essengay. There's going to be some other players to play, but Caleb Wilson, I'd say this, a nice stat line for Caleb Wilson in the rookie year, 12 to 15 points per game. I think that's a good thing. 8 to 9 rebounds per game. I think he's going to be able to get that done. And between blocks and steals, I'm going to combine that to stocks. You're looking at about 2.5 stocks per game. If you can get that from Caleb Wilson in year one as a rookie, that's a good baseline. That's not to say he can't do more than that. I can completely see him doing more than that. But I will say that that's a good kind of baseline expectation for Caleb Wilson, because Modest is going to have a large part of the shots. Josh Giddey's going to shoot a lot too. He's going to try to score a lot while Caleb Wilson is developing, but those shots are going to be there for Caleb Wilson, and it's his job to continue to grow and develop in that. I think we're going to be really good in regards to that area of it. So yeah, and a good comment here says you can teach shooting. Stop saying can't and shooting. Let's just leave it well enough alone. Swain is a great pick. Listen, I agree with you. Dailyn Swain, we'll get into more on that. Dailyn Swain is a really good pick, and I do think he has the chance to be one of those situations where Bulls fans, oh my God, how did we pass on Cameron Carr? And then in a year or two, people are going to look at that and say, hey, Dailyn Swain has been yamming it on people's heads for the better part of the last 2 years. And not even just that, getting in the passing lanes, getting in transition. We'll get more into Dailyn Swain in a second, because even though Caleb Wilson is going to do a lot defensively, Dailyn Swain has an opportunity, I think. If people will remember, right? I'm not saying that this is the overall caliber of player that Dailyn. I'll save it. But to get back on Caleb Wilson and the expectations, that's the expectations. I know there are going to be some people like, no, he needs to average 18 points per game. He can get 20 points per game. I'm not saying he doesn't have the capability of doing that. But again, I'm more realistic in my expectations, and I do think that the spacing for the Bulls are going to be a problem overall. That's not a Caleb Wilson problem, but I do think the spacing overall is going to be a bit of a problem. The mid-range can be a little bit congested depending on how Modest and other players shoot the three, but I think Caleb is going to show that dog mentality, and I would not be surprised at all if we see Caleb Wilson right away be that type of player that's not afraid to get in people's faces. He's not afraid to show his leadership. He wants to wear that Chicago Bulls uniform, and that fact, just the fact that he wants to be in that uniform, just the fact that you can see in the way that he conducts and carries himself, he wants to be here. The quotes that came out from him after he was drafted by the Chicago Bulls, this is a kid that welcomes the challenge of being the best player on a team. And the confidence is something that it's like sometimes people can have overly confidence and it comes off as arrogance or irrational confidence. Caleb Wilson is confident, much like in the same realm of Modest. He's going to put in every bit of the work to maximize on his potential. He's going to put in every bit of the work to be the best player that he possibly can be. This kid wants to not just be good, he wants to be great. And I want players like that in our uniform and in our building, and we got him. I know that he's the one that fell at 4. I know it's easy to kind of look at that and say it's scraps or whatever else. Caleb Wilson is an absolute dog. And in a lot of drafts, he would have went number 1 overall. This draft was deeper in the top 4. Caleb Wilson is a great player, has great potential And I can't wait to see how he realizes that potential here this season for the Chicago Bulls. That's just my opinion. Love to hear from you guys in the comment section down below on that one. How do you feel about Caleb Wilson? But we're going to get into, on the other side of this, we're going to talk about the other draft pick in the first round, and that's Dailyn Swain at pick number 15 right after this. But before we get into that, we got to get to a message from one of our sponsors, and that is Indeed. Workplace chaos can show up fast. That's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location. Finding the right person can make the difference, whether it's building a business or building a winning team. Some of the best moves organizations make aren't always the slappiest ones or splashiest ones. Sometimes it's finding the right person who fits exactly what the team needs at the right moment. That's what stood out to me here. And it's the same idea behind Indeed Sponsored Jobs, helping connect organizations with candidates who are the right fit from the start. One great addition can have a ripple effect on everyone around them. When you find someone who brings the right skills, attitude, and experience, it makes the entire group better. That's why finding qualified candidates matters so much, and that's why tools like Indeed Sponsored Jobs can help make that process even easier. The best organizations aren't trying to look at every position option. They're focused on identifying the people who truly match what they're looking for. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the workplace chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Also got to talk to you guys about another one of our sponsors, and that is Haize. ED is way more common than most guys think, and millions of men deal with it at some point. Haize offers a simple, convenient way to take care of your health by connecting you with a licensed healthcare provider online and giving you access to personalized treatment options from the comfort of your home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines, just straightforward process designed to getting care faster. Taking care of yourself shouldn't feel complicated, and Haize makes the process private and easy to navigate. It's healthcare built around your schedule and your comfort. When something is already uncomfortable to talk about, the last thing you want is a complicated process. Having the ability to start online from home makes taking that first step feel like it's much more manageable. And a lot of people put things off they don't want to start. Haize makes it easier and straightforward online process, discreet delivery, so getting care feels more comfortable. To get simple online access to personal, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit Haize.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Haize.com/LockedOnNBA for your free online visit. Haize.com/LockedOnNBA. Prescription required. See website for details and important safety information. Cetaphil is the generic version of Viagra and is registered trademark of Viatris specialty. Haize is not affiliated with or induced by Viatris. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. Wrong sound effect. I had my soundboard set wrong. There you go. That's when you get weird things. All right, y'all. With that said, or was that intentional? Find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Dailyn Swain. I want to talk about Dailyn Swain. So the reaction from Bulls fans on Dailyn Swain highlight one thing that I do want to take time to point out here. You guys have to stop. And I repeat, stop allowing the rumors, the speculation, or even your favorite podcasters, being me, Pat, or anybody else, make you think that if a certain name you don't hear, if you don't hear that on draft night, that it automatically means that the name that you heard is a miss. I need Bulls fans to stop that. Stop the cap. Stop the BS. If you are not going to do your own research on players and you are just going to take the player that is most commonly mocked or talked about and make you think that anything less than that player or anything other than that player means that it's an automatic miss, you got to stop. You got to stop talking, because you have decided to not do your own research. You decided to not look into the draft board. You decided to not look at anybody else. If you lock in on one prospect and run prospect only and any other name, and you hear any other name but that name, you think that it means that it's a miss or a disappointment, you got to stop, because you have not done the research. You've not done the looking into. You have not done the due diligence to really have a varying opinion on it. And that may sound like I'm being a butthole about it, but it's real. If you are not going to do some research, if you're not going to look into other prospects other than the names that you hear, you have lost your objectivity and ability to complain about anybody else because you decided not to research that player. That's just the reality of it. I'm sorry if that makes me the bad guy. I'm sorry if that makes me the jackass. I'm sorry if that makes me that. But somebody needs to tell it to y'all and tell it to y'all real. Again, as a fan, it's not your job to go and look in the 15 prospects. It's not your job to go and look at a bunch of game tape. That's not your job, right? And that's fine. But if you decide not to do that at all, if you decide not to read a draft profile, if you decide not to go deeper into the board, you then don't have the ability to then say and look at anything else. You don't have that. It's just the reality of it. You don't have the right to say that because you have locked in on one person. That's it. Why do you think me and Pat spend so much time with only 2 picks, sometimes only 1 pick, and we'll look at 40 prospects and we only got 1 pick? Because we want to be able to have a fully formed opinion on the other people that are going to go in this draft. That's it. That's the reality of it. So, yeah, some people went higher. Morris Johnson went a lot higher than projected. Some people went lower. Daymar went a couple of picks lower than ejected. LeBaron Philon went way lower than projected. So, yeah, the draft board's gonna ebb and weigh. But you got to keep in mind, even a player that's projected to go 18 to 20, it doesn't mean that they don't have the talent to go 15. It just means that based off the draft board, that's where mocks had that player going. Dailyn Swain is somebody that, as an on-ball creator, is deep. Like, he is somebody that can absolutely flat out score the ball and can play defense. I was going to make a comparison early, right? And this episode is about expectations. I'm not saying that Dailyn Swain is going to get 10, 15 shots per game in his rookie year. I don't even know if he's going to start at the 2. But if people, and this is going to be a deep cut, if people remember, and I'm not saying this is going to be the ceiling of Dailyn Swain, but if people remember Thabo Sefolosha, when he was a rookie that not a lot, I think he was drafted in the 2nd round, not a lot of people knew. But if you remember, in that rookie year, Scott Skiles trusted Thabo Sefolosha to go out there and lock down D-Wade, which he did in a couple of matchups. He trusted Thabo Sefolosha so much defensively that he got the Kobe Bryant call on some of that. Like, and Dailyn Swain has that level of disruptive defense. He gets into the pass lane. He's a really good on-ball defender. He can guard 1 through 4 almost immediately. He's a strong guy that has a 41.5-inch vertical on top of that. In transition, he's going to finish and fall and take off some heads. On top of that, he's a player that's smart enough to understand that my jump shot isn't always going to fall. I know how to get to the free throw line. This kid knows how to get to the free throw line and hit the free throw percentage at a 51% clip. I'm sorry, 51, an 81% clip. 81%. All 3 years in college, 81.5%, and from the free throw line, averaging 3.5 free throws per game. But last year, his junior year, averaged 5.6 free throws per game and hit that at an 81% clip. On top of that, he's a solid rebounder. He's going to get a bunch of stocks, steals, and blocks in regards to that one. And he's just a player. The jump shot, much like Caleb Wilson, there are signs that the jump shot can work out for him. He does need to get it off a little bit quicker, right? That's going to be a thing there. He has to get that jump shot off quicker because he's very slow with his release. But I'm telling y'all right now, people that have been saying that Swain is some type of pick that's bad, you're bad. I'm sorry, you're bad in regards to it. And this is another dumbass statement here. Being honest, that Swain pick was no, it was not an Acme move. You know what Acme would have drafted? Acme would have drafted Nate Mint, number 9 overall. That's what Acme pick is. Dailyn Swain is not Dalen Terry. And if you guys are comparing, you're stupid. I'm sorry. Objectively, you're dumb. And you need to go and watch some actual tape on Dailyn Swain. Yes, he does not have the most consistent jump shot, but even then, he shot the 3 ball at 34% clip last year, taking 2.5 per game. That's enough to keep defenses honest. Y'all gotta stop with everything you don't like about something or somebody that is somehow wrong. Another dummy here. Haize, you trying to convince? No, I've done my research. I don't have to convince myself of anything. I watched 70 prospects in this draft, and not just tangentially. I'm talking about actual tape. I don't have to convince myself because guess what? Unlike a lot of y'all, I don't rely on dumbass comparisons compared into players that y'all don't like. So no, nobody's trying to convince themselves or anything. This is not the old front office pick. And y'all are so traumatized by your PTSD that you go right to dumb comparisons because you don't actually have the actual knowledge to make a legit. There are definitely criticisms to make about Dailyn Swain. But just saying, oh, it's an Ackman pick, that's a lazy ass criticism, a dumb criticism, and one that shows that you have not actually watched this kid play basketball. Objectively. I'm sorry. Like, again, I have no problem being the jackass here and having to tell y'all how it is. Like, a lot of y'all try to compare Caleb Wilson. I can't tell you how many people in the last 24. Isn't Caleb Wilson the same as Patrick Williams and Tyrus Thomas? Stupid. Just flat out stupid stuff. It's silly. It's silly. See, no, and again, this shows that you are also dumb and your mama probably should have breastfed you so your brain development could have been a lot better so you wouldn't be sitting here looking like a dummy. I'm not heated. I'm passionate because y'all are stupid. And sometimes you have to combat stupidity with actual facts and passion so people can understand how dumb some of y'all are. It's just stupid. It's literally just stupid. Again, I'm not denying that it's a reach. I'm saying that people that act like because it's not Cameron Carr, that it's a bad pick. So again, comprehend words and understand what's actually being said if you're going to respond to what I said. I didn't say that it wasn't a reach. I'm saying that the people who act like this is somehow a bad pick just because the name wasn't Cameron Carr, it's wrong. That's just objectively wrong, and it's not correct. So again, if you're going to say something, make sure you're using the actual words that are being said. But with that said, we're going to next up talk about what's left for the Chicago Bulls to address in round two. We're going to get into that, but first, we do got to get into a message from a couple of our sponsors. All right, so before we get into, I got to take this comment off. Let's get that. Bam. All right, bet. All right, so before we get in and talk about what's left for the Chicago Bulls to address in round two of this draft, I do got to talk to you guys about a message from one of our sponsors, and that is Game Time. There are more live events than ever we're seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding what you want to attend, it's actually getting the tickets. Between long wait times, confusing checkout prices, and surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple, with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive saving opportunities that help you get the events you want without the usual trouble. My biggest pet peeve is when you think you found a great deal, get all the way to checkout, and suddenly the final price looks different. Game Time takes the guesswork out. I also love the fact that you can get views from your seat before even attending the event, which means that you know that you're getting a good seat and a great price. With that said, and honestly, I want to know what my view will look like exactly before I'm paying, and Game Time helps clear those things ahead of time. I could buy tickets with a lot more confidence as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, Bulls fans, before we get up out of here, we got to talk. Round two of the NBA draft goes down today. What comes next for the Chicago Bulls? There are a number of players that fit the Bulls draft profile. I'm looking at like 3 players at pick number 38 that I think make a lot of sense for the Bulls. Trevon Brazile makes a lot of sense for the Bulls. I know people like Henry Vassar, and I know he's still on the board. I'm not as enamored with Henry Vassar as some people are. And I do think he's probably going to go before the Bulls move at 38. I know that I think picks number 31 and 32 are up for trade, and maybe the Bulls can do something like that. I think you would have to do that to probably get Henry Vassar. Ryan Conwell as a shooter is somebody that I like a lot as well. I like that a lot and what he brings here for this. And we'll see what the Bulls can do in regards to that. Like, I think that there's still a lot of talent that helps fit the Bulls' needs here. Again, second round talent, though, I would say temper your expectations on that talent making a big impact in year one. But there are some guys that are definitely worth the shot here. Ryan Conwell is one of the best pure scorers in this draft overall. One of the reasons why he fell is he's older. The defensive limitations are there. Even though I do think he's a very active defender with his hands as far as getting in the passing lanes, I think that Ryan Conwell could make sense for the Bulls who are lacking shooting. But then again, I don't know if the size profile is something that the Bulls may pass on that. And I don't know what we're planning on doing with the center position, right? We made a trade for Nick Claxton, which means that we're probably not going to go after a center in free agency. So a guy like Trevon Brazile, a guy like Henry Vassar, they can make some sense for the Bulls there. Bob Miller is another guy that I know a lot of people are really enamored with. And the more and more I think about it, the less I think it fits Tiago Splitter's coaching style. Now, I could be wrong on that. I just don't know that it completely fits. And Isaiah Evans, I see somebody mentioning Isaiah Evans. Isaiah Evans is another guy that if you're looking for scoring with the upside there, with the length that can play multiple positions on that wing, Isaiah Evans can make a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls. So I think, honestly, ESPN has Isaiah Evans ranked as their best player left on the board right now before heading into round 2. And that's definitely somebody that the Bulls could take a look at. He may not make it to 38 for the Chicago Bulls, but he could be, right? So again, I say all that to say this. There is still a lot of talent left on the board in this draft. And, it's talent that don't necessarily have the cleanest path to contributing right away. Some of them do. Some of them you can make that case for them to contribute right away, but other players. So some of my favorite players in the second round, Isaiah Evans, right? I love Isaiah Evans. I love Trevon Brazile as well. I think that he has really good upside as a big that can do a little bit of everything and hit that corner three. The stocks that he's going to bring is absolutely crazy. I like him. Richie Saunders from BYU as a pure scorer, I like him a lot too. Think of him as like diet Con Knipple. And I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Con Knipple, but diet Con Knipple. The problem with him is that he turns 25 and he tore his ACL in February. So he may be even able to drop to 50, with the Bulls drafted 56. So that's a possibility there. But I like him too. Bob Miller, I personally like. I just don't know if it fits the profile that Tiago. When you look at the centers that Tiago Splitter plays a lot, it's kind of those more traditional pick and roll, both offense and defensive centers that really need your point guard to get him involved, that can do some back to the basket stuff. Tiago Splitter doesn't typically really like the more like the Jokic style centers, the ones that can pass and run your offense, maybe shoot a three. He doesn't really play those guys a whole lot. So that doesn't necessarily mean that that can't change here with the Chicago Bulls. It just means that I'm just looking at what he's already done, and there's some signs there that may not work. So we'll see what's going to happen here. The Bulls could also trade up in regards to it as well. I just think we're going to see what's going to happen in regards to that. There's a lot of guys there, and we'll see, right? So pick round 2. Watch out for the Chicago Bulls. We'll see what's going to happen in regards to that one. So we'll be here. Make sure you guys stay in tune with us. We will be here either tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to go live after the draft or wait till tomorrow morning, where we're going to break down rounds 1, round 2, grade that, and talk about how the draft impacts free agency coming up. So make sure you guys stay in tune with us for that. But Locked On Bulls, you can follow us at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me at CEO Haize. Locked On Bulls is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, and Fubo TV, meaning anywhere you want us, you can get it. We'll catch you guys bright and early, either tomorrow morning or late tonight. Love you guys. Go Bulls. Peace.